All right, I have two more questions. We've talked about the different divisions and stuff like that, but I'd like you to explain what's the difference in terms of like a typical off-season, your travel, and stuff like that, because we've talked about the different stuff, but what are the expectations a little bit?
And I can't answer for the other divisions, but if you talk about a Division I program, just about everything we do is dictated by NCAA regulations, including the practice time and length of the season and hours and times that we can do things. So from an NCAA Division I, irrespective of the rules, there is a fall season from the start of the fall season till the end of that fall season, sometime in early August till the first weekend of December in that national championship. We're in what we call our traditional season, where we have the ability to ask our student athletes to participate in 20 hours a week of countable athletic related activities. Realize I said athletic related activities. That doesn't include study hall or time in the training room or those sorts of things. It's 20 hours of meetings or film or practice or lifting weights, anything that you would consider applicable to your athletic performance. Anything we ask you to do outside of rehab and training room sort of stuff would be countable in those hours. Those are our maximum times, and that's really the entirety of the fall season. There's a limited amount of time in the spring where we have those kinds of time frame as well, during which time we can compete on 5 different dates. So we have a 20-game regular season in the fall, 5 dates that we can compete on in the spring, and usually it's somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks probably in the spring where we can again train in a what I would call 20-hour-a-week mode, where we're training probably 5 days a week, depending on whether we have competitions that weekend. Outside of that, we're limited to 8 hours a week, so anytime you're in school and we're not in one of those full-time periods, we're limited to 8 hours a week. And in those 8 hours, only 2 of those can actually be skill instruction with a ball. So there's a period of time in our season where we're focused more on the physical training part of it, where we can do strength and conditioning activities, but only a couple of hours a week can be spent with the ball. There's usually probably 3 to 6 weeks, I guess, 3 to 5 weeks probably in the spring semester. And you can put those weeks wherever you want, depending on where you are in the country. If you're at Baylor, you're probably putting them at the beginning of the spring because it gets too hot by May. If you're with us, you're putting them at the end of the spring because it's a little too cold in January. So you can put those weeks wherever you want, depending on where you are in the country. But the number of weeks, the number of days is all dictated by the NCAA. We're all within the same restrictions about that. So you're going to find the same year-round training opportunity with the same restrictions across the board for all of the Division I institutions. And NAI, I'll go this, I'll let, I think D3 should jump ahead of NAI this time.
Right. I just like listening to Janet. We basically actually we're very similar now. So after our last game, we give our players off until after break. We come back. They're in the weight room, and basically what Janet says. I mean, it's what a coach wants to, what the work you have to do with your team, and the hours that you're permitted. I think we're only allowed 2 games during the springtime. I think, Janet, you have 5 dates, but on those dates you can play 2 games, right?
Correct. In the spring we just count dates, so you can have multiple games in a day. Some of the colleges will do a small-sided tournament. We just finished one of those where we actually played probably 5 or 6 small-sided games. So it's in the spring we just have to count dates. So if you're competing against any outside competition, that day counts, and you can do that on 5 days in the spring.
And then we just look for opportunities to play. COD always has a great 7 on the side that they run. Now they have all brand new fields there, so it's even going to be better. But there's always opportunities that we get out and we play what we're permitted. And then most of the schools up here you will go home with your summer program. And I think as an athlete, you always want to stay 90% fit. I think most coaches, they'll take you 10%, but they don't want to take you more than that. You know, you have to be about 90%, especially when you go into camps. And usually, you know, for us, it's 2 weeks prior to when school starts. But the summer, you know, is very important. It's one of the most important times because you're independent of the program. A lot of the kids at D1 programs actually hang around. If they don't, they're finding teams to play. And then they're doing their summer workout that these coaches are giving them. And it's one of the most important things, I believe, for the success of a program is to have your athletes come in condition, ready to play, not sweating, not puking, not, you know, at St. Francis, my first year, I had, I don't know, 17, 18 on my roster, 12 were puking. You know, because they did absolutely nothing, even though they thought it was going to be like years past. And once the running starts, and this is, you know, conditioning time, and like I said, you have to be around 90%. Soccer playing and what every coach up here wants to do, they're going to get you 10%, but that's a very important part of playing. In most programs, and I think D3 is probably a little bit different, but they're even becoming more and more with their players playing and conditioning and doing all the things that everybody else is. But they have a little bit of, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a little bit of a philosophy on difference with student athletes, I think.
Janet already touched on it. You know, everything in the NCAA there's a manual that's thick, and I'm not joking, it's that thick, am I right? And for each division, and so you combine all three of them, and it's probably that high. So for ours, I'll try to be real quick about this. The non-traditional segment it operates the same way as D1, but the limitations are different. We're allowed 20 hours a week. You get 16 opportunities that you have to declare ahead of time, like Janet referred to. For us, it's a 35-day period. So we have to declare which 16 days that's occurring in that 5-week period. And if it lightning's on that day, too bad. You can't make it up on a different day. So you declared your 16, you get your 16. That's the way it is. We only get one competition date. Now the NCAA rule, the way it reads, is you can play as many games as you want in an 8-hour period on that one day. but you know what you're going to do with that. So. That's sort of how the non-traditional segment goes. I do, as a coach, have year-round expectations because my athletes have year-round expectations, but we try to limit that to about an hour a day. Depending on where we are on the calendar, that might be 2 days a week, 4 days a week, or 6 days a week, depending on how close to the season we're approaching. In those workout packets that they have, they're supervised by strength and conditioning coaches. It can't be anybody on our staff or anything like that. I can't be there. I can't track what you've done. I can't have you report back to me what you've done, how much you've lifted, or whatever it might be. What we're focused on is strength, plyometrics, metabolics, agilities, injury prevention like ACL injury prevention, high ankle sprains, shin splints, things like that. Speed and acceleration meaning the first 3 steps, speed what happens after those first 3, single leg development, core development, multi-directional movement, things of that nature. So there's more to it than that, but that's what we're focused on outside of that 35-day playing time period.
In Division II, on the white sheet, I pretty much gave all the rules on there. So if you don't have one, we mirror Division I, but in the fall, we're required to have 1 day off per week. I'm not sure if that was stated or if that was the intention of the question, but and then we train 3 days a week, and then we have 2 matches per week, typically Friday, Sundays. We play Friday, Sundays. Everyone's schedule might be a little different, and maybe it isn't. In the off season, we have 24 days in a 45-day period, so it's a little bit. I'm not sure Knut's right. These manuals are so, and 24 days, 45 days. I'm not sure where these numbers come from, but that's how we work.
We're a little different in that we allow to bring our student athletes in on August 1st. Having worked at the Division III level, you're usually trying to get double sessions, triple sessions, and stuff like that The nice thing with where we are is we can afford to go one practice per day. And then the rest of the rules, 20 with 2 scrimmages in the traditional season, 5 weeks in the non-traditional season for us. So real similar to Division I level on that side.
And all these are great answers, but the bottom line is it's a great question to ask. Can you tell me about your off-season training program? Can you tell me about your training cycle throughout the year? Because to listen to him explain his off-season, if you just said Division III gets to play on 16 days, one competition, you don't really get the whole answer. If you get the answer of what his strength and conditioning coaches are doing in that time, it might distinguish that program and their year-round expectations with someone else's year-round expectations. So you've heard some great answers up here, but what you've really gotten is a great question to ask to see what kind of effort and energy and development piece is put into that training program. It's great about the rules, but the question is, what are you getting accomplished with the time that you're given within the rules? And that's really the question that you want, not just how many days do you get to train. What do you do with the days that you do get to train?